kidding me? Like, when I hear things like this, I just think it's someone who is so traumatized that they cannot see the beauty in their own people. So you're right, Anissa. We do need allyship. We do need other men to step forth and tell other men like 50 Cent and Lil Wayne when they are being clowns. We can't just be like, oh, well, we'll talk to our women privately about it. No, they have to come out in public and defend us. These are the same men that black women are forever defending. So we need black men to step up and be like, no, that's a clown move. No, I don't agree with that. Did you not see that?
I'm Luanda, Yasmin.
I'm Anissa.
And I'm Sophie, and we want to welcome you to episode 5 of Ethnically Speaking. We are 4 fabulously smart, curious, opinionated, and highly melanated women who represent the United Kingdom, and we are going to be discussing everything and anything that affects our communities, whether that's current affairs, pop culture, or everything in between. And we are telling you that nothing is off limits. And we are going to keep it 100% real with you 100% of the time. So forget tiptoeing around issues and technically speaking, because today we're ethnically speaking. Now, on last week's episode, us 4 ladies shared some of our 4 worst date stories, and then we asked you to share your worst date stories down below in the comments. Make sure you stay tuned to the end of the episode, because we are going to be sharing the best ones, or the worst ones, depending on how you look at it. But first of all, we're going to go over to my girl Linda. What is it that you've been seeing, reading this week that we need to know about?
Ladies. So, I don't know if y'all have seen, but our queen, Halle Berry, has stepped down. She stepped down from a film role. So she was set to play a trans man in a new film. And she has stepped down. There was a lot of backlash from the LGBTQIA community with regards to her playing that role. There's a guy from another show called Family Guy. I believe the voice actor is Mike Henry. He used to voice the Cleveland Brown. I know someone else has stepped down. Another white actress has stepped down from voicing a black character. So I want to know, do you think that when someone is portraying a character, whether it be in a film, live action remake, voice character, whatever, do you think the actor playing that role should be the same race or the same sexuality as the character that they're playing?
I mean, I think I've got a lot to say about this one, but let me talk about Halle Berry specifically. I think in terms of Halle Berry, it was right for her to step down. I think there are so few trans roles out there. There's so little representation for trans people playing trans roles or playing trans characters that for her, I think it was right to step down. I saw this documentary on Netflix called Disclosure, where it was talking about trans people in TV and film. And it's usually they're getting no representation, poor representation, or prejudice representation. So I think we're in a time now where, yeah, some people like Halle need to step aside. I respect her. We love Halle Berry, but this wasn't the role for you.
See, I might have an unpopular opinion right now.
Ooh. Hey girl, share it. Better tell us.
So, I think when it comes to race, so for example, in the case of Mike Henry, he's been voicing this character that is a black character. He's characterized as a black character. His characteristics are black. So for a white actor to be playing that role, to me, that make no sense, because it's like, you guys have written in this character specifically to be black, so would it not make sense for a black person to play it? However, I can't tell someone's sexual preference necessarily by looking at them. So I do agree with Sophie in the sense that I do feel that, especially for the trans world, they don't get enough representation. But when it comes to other sexual orientations, I can't look at you and assume that. So I don't know if I'm as hard on it as I am with regards to a black person playing a black character, if that makes sense.
Okay, what Luanda? What was that? What was that?
It's a long.
Because you actually act. You actually act. So, like, I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about this.
I think one of the most important things that we need to take note of is that whenever we have these conversations, most of the time we're always talking about a person who in their real life has more systematic power over the character than they're trying to play. Because personally, I would definitely rather be having the conversation of trans actors playing cisgendered roles or even white passing black people playing Caucasian roles. But the reason why we're not talking about that is because all of the privileges that we benefit from in our lives are ever present in the entertainment industry as well. And the reason why I say something like I'd rather see a trans person play a cis person or like a white passing black person play a Caucasian character is because when you have a character that is able-bodied and white and cisgendered and heterosexual, they get to tell their stories. They get to tell stories that have nothing to do with those things. Like, it's very rare to see a trans character that just gets to be a person that doesn't have to have their narrative attached to the fact that they're trans. Same with a black person or a black character. Their narrative is always attached to the fact that they're a black person. And I think that obviously in an ideal world, any performer would be able to play any role because in that same ideal world, all people are seen as people. But we don't live in a world where I'm seen as a person that happens to be black. I'm seen as a black person and my quality of life is affected by that. Trans people don't get to be men and women who just happen to be trans. They're seen as trans people and they receive like an inhumane level of violence and discrimination because people see them that way. So it's like, as a person that comes from like multiple marginalized communities, it is very common to consume art that doesn't even make reference to your existence. Like, we have had no choice but to relate and to enjoy movies and shows and books that don't even recognize that we exist. So it's a fresh type of pain to finally see stories that are being told about you and then you're still being excluded from it. That is really frustrating for me. So I think that we need to look at the power imbalances that happen in our lives and make sure we're not replicating them in TV and film. And I like, you know how I said earlier, okay, like in an ideal world, the most talented actor would play the role, but we can't pretend that all of these other factors don't play a part into the decision making of who that person is going to be. Like, we can't pretend that those things aren't a factor when they are. Like, you can't, there's no sector in your life where you can erase your white privilege or you can erase your cisgendered privilege or anything like that. But I will say that I am very grateful to see a shift, because when I was growing up there wasn't many things that I can relate to, and now there's a lot more. So I'm grateful to be like alive at a time where there's such a shift. And also on the topic of Halle Berry, I'm actually really grateful with the way that she responded, because she didn't have to respond like that. I mean, she could have been the amount of times that we've called actors out for playing, you know, like when we, like, I don't even want to name names, but the amount of times that we've called actors out for playing roles that are different to their race and stuff, and they're like, I'm bringing nuance to their character, and I blah, blah, blah. But Halle Berry, she actually took a weekend to be like, okay, let me just watch this disclosure documentary, let me read these comments, let me actually just recognize my privilege in this situation, let me learn and let me grow from it. And that's all that we can ever expect from someone.
The thing is, I think Halle Berry I do believe Halle Berry probably did some work over the weekend, but also I think she probably got a lot of pressure from like her PR team and how big the LGBTQIA plus movement is right now. Now is not the time for her to say, no, I'm just going to play it anyway. So as much as I do think that there was some of that, there is a lot of pressure on like these animation actors who have stepped down. They're not stepping down because they've suddenly had an awakening. Some of them have been playing these roles for years. And now they're starting to get light and they're like, you know, I've been thinking about this for the past week and I know I've done it for like 5-10 years, but now I think, like, it's not. There is a lot of pressure on. And I think I really agree with Linda, to be honest, because when I think for Halle Berry, yes, but in general, if we're starting to say people can only play the race, the gender, the sex, the accent, the denomination that they come from, we are going to start getting into like issues, because when we see black actors playing white roles, we laud it. We say this is amazing. They're breaking barriers. When people are talking about having a black James Bond, everyone's just like, why not? James Bond is white, but why can't a black man play it? We're not then saying it's a white person, let's step down. Or when Hamilton came out, Hamilton theatre play, absolutely fantastic. They were played by people of different colours, races, backgrounds, and people like, this is phenomenal. We should be doing more of this. So this conversation of people only playing what they are in their real life, we're going to start getting to, is it going to be life imitating art? Because a lot of actors want to have good roles to play. But I think the problem is that there's a lack of representation in general. Because there's a lack of representation, we have to hold on to certain roles. I'm saying too much. Let me let someone else.
So yeah, Sophie, I'm just going to jump in there because I kind of agreed and disagreed with what you were saying. I think I sit more on the side of the fence with Luanda on this a little bit, just because for me, one thing the world is not short of is people. So if there is a particular story that needs to be told by a particular group, you can always find a talented actor in that group. Like so I don't ever think that there's a shortage of people. So I do think if the story calls for a Native American person, go and get a Native American actor. Do you know what I mean? And I know like we shouldn't pigeonhole to be like, okay, only you can tell Native American stories, for example. But for me, I just think it comes with, I don't know, like a level of authenticity to the art. It's not all about making money. It's like you're just wanting to tell a real story, I guess, through a more realer lens. But when it's something, I guess, that's not so much biopic or a bit more fictional, should I say, and it's like, this actor could be like James Bond is a fictional character, even though this whole time everybody's had an attachment to him and everyone's attachment to him is, okay, this is a white man that plays this role. I think with that role you can have a little bit more flexibility just because the whole narrative of James Bond had nothing to do with his race. Does that make sense? So that's why I said I sit on the fence, because I agree with Luanda that like there's lots of people, so those people should tell their stories, but at the same time I don't think an actor should be limited. But what I will say though is, because I know a few of you guys said it, I may be one of the only black people that doesn't like our lighter skinned black people who can pass as white playing roles that are white. And what I'll say by that, like my biggest problem I've ever had is, for example, with Rashida Jones. I don't know if you guys know her. Rashida Jones in The Office was playing a white Italian woman. So at that point in my life, I never thought that this was a black woman or a mixed woman. Every role I saw her in, she was white.
Rashida Jones, the same actress from Black AF?
Yes. And so so then when I saw her on Black AF, I was so confused. I was like, what's my girl from The Office doing here? It baffled me. And then when I did the research, I was like, oh my gosh, she's Quincy Jones' daughter. Oh my gosh, she's half black. And I understand like she's biracial, so she can flex and that kind of thing. But I just thought it was strange to me. Like, I just thought it was strange to me because I felt like, yes, she could have been on The Office, but what was wrong with her being on The Office and her just being a biracial woman instead of her pretending to be Italian?
It's not her problem, is it?
She doesn't write the role.
Exactly. Exactly. The role doesn't exist for her.
Why would you agree to be cast as a different race? That's what I'm confused about.
Right, okay, but
it's like multiple reasons, but there's multiple reasons for that. Firstly, it's a paycheck. Okay, let's not forget, it's a paycheck. And also, if you are a flexible actor, you don't always want to be defined by your race. If you're in a position like Rashida Jones, where she is, passing as a white woman, she can pass as that. If she can kind of convey the nuances of a white person, it's like, oh yeah, this woman's a great actor. So it's not necessarily that she is, I don't think it's a case where she's not proud to be from where she is. I think she's flexible to do
I don't think it's a problem. I just think it is odd to me. And the reason why I say it's odd to me is because I had a big problem when Angelina Jolie was pretending to be mixed race of black and Chinese. But we could say the same. Well, I don't know what Angelina's.
But it's not okay. So, but the difference is, like I said, what power does Angelina Jolie have in her life versus that biracial woman? What power does Rashida Jones have in her life versus that Italian woman? There's a big difference. And when we talk about the difference between talking about, okay, we want a black James Bond or we want a black Ariel, because you look at these fictional characters and their stories have nothing to do with their race, but it's so rare to find that that because you're so used to, like we talked about last week, we're so used to white people being people and everyone else is like a black person or a trans person or a gay person, and like white cisgendered heterosexual people just get to exist, and they get to exist in all these different lenses and all these different stories, fictional or non-fictional. You get to have more than what's just attached to you that you didn't agree with just because of your skin or your gender or your sexuality or anything like that. So when we think about those kind of characters, we want black and brown people to play them because they actually have layers. Whereas if you have black characters or if you have characters of LGBT plus and things like that, their stories or their characteristics or their stereotypes all swirl around that same thing. Like when Linda was talking about Cleveland, when you're writing a black man, you're writing in all these other things, all these other jokes, like how he gave them sister box set at the baby shower and stuff like that. Like you're writing in black jokes for this black character. You're not just writing a character with funny jokes because you see them that way. So that's why it's more interesting to see the flip side. Like for example, I don't know if any of you guys have seen Sex Education.
No.
Have you seen that show? Really, guys? What? No. Basically, there's a really great character and he's a black character and he got the role when obviously originally the role, like not to say that it was for a white person, but when the race isn't specified, obviously it's always white. And that character gets to have so many layers because they're not thinking we're writing a black man. They just wrote a boy and then a black man ended up playing him. So you actually get to have such like an actual good role with thoughts and feelings and direction that's not related to you just being a black person.
I don't think we're actually saying anything different. Like if the race is specific to the role, like Anissa said, if that Native American, that calls for it. There was that whole thing about Julia Roberts being pegged to play Harriet Tubman 25 years ago.
Oh, yes, I remember.
I'm not joking. And people just like she was a black person who was letting slaves free, and they were just kind of like,
didn't just say that.
They were saying not that many people.
It was an exec.
That. No.
Yeah, an exec was like, "Oh, people won't tell the difference."
Yes,
Exactly.
it came out last year. Did you not remember that?
So
It's such a big thing.
if it's specific to their race, that's a different thing. But if it's something that is like anybody can do, because I can't speak on every community, but I would probably make a guess
that every gay person, every black person doesn't only ever want to play a gay or a black person. Like, and if you only played roles that were gay, like Andrew Scott, who was in Sherlock, and he's been on stage, he never plays gay roles. Because I'm assuming on some level, you don't want to get typecast as the gay actor. No one wants to be typecast as the black actor or the Hispanic actor. Like trans people, I'm sure they're like, we'll play a trans character, but let me play someone else, because you want to play us. Like cis people want to play us, but we don't get to play you. And that's where the problem is, because people need to get into positions of power where they can start writing the roles now. If we're always going to wait on what majority cisgender white men are going to write, they are never going to write diversity.
Yeah. It's definitely so important to pay attention to the writing as well, because we've all seen, especially as black women, the times that I have felt most represented by a black woman when I'm watching a show. I'm like, oh my gosh, this show is great. Like, how can I get cast in this kind of show? And then I realized, oh, the black woman who stars in the show, she also created it and wrote the whole script. Okay, great. Next one. Oh, this show is great about this black woman. Oh, this black woman also wrote it. And do you know what I mean? So it's it is frustrating that we can only have like a representation that we enjoy most of the time so far when it comes from us writing it, because I think that should definitely be expanded. But it's a good thing that we're having the conversation in general. The only way that we're going to fix a problem is by acknowledging that it exists in the first place, which is also why 50 Cent has come under some fire this week. Get them size out. 50 Cent has come under some... What did you say?
Do we have to talk about 50?
Everyone's already hitting the snooze button. So 50 Cent came under fire this week when he said that black women aren't exotic and black women get bitter and angry when he dates actual exotic women. Him and Lil Wayne laughed over those remarks on their Young Money radio interview. And in the same week, our girl Janelle Monáe said that she is sick of the misogyny from men and from the music industry as well. Do you guys think that hip hop has a colorism and misogynoir issue? And if you do, what are we going to do about it?
Okay, so the simple answer is yes. and I think that is something that we all know. And I think usually when we're talking about hip hop and I guess anything that is against women, we are usually more focused, I think, a little bit, in my opinion, more on the whole colorism aspect. So we go hard over the colorism thing and why only the light-skinned female rappers winning and it's only the light-skinned video vixens and blah, blah, blah. And I think there's been a slight neglect, a little bit more of the whole misogynoir.
I don't know how to say that word, so I just give it a flair. Misogynoir.
Sexy girl, it was so sexy, Noir.
Noir.
Where's my beret?
I think we've had we've almost deflected from that a little bit.
And I was like thinking so hard about this because for me, it kind of like, it's a thought that I've said on Twitter so many times. At what point in history or in the world did we decide that black women are the butt of the joke? Like, I want to understand, at what point in history did people sit down and go, yes, 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 and now we're all going after them? Because whenever that point started, I think is when it transcended into music and into culture. And I just find it incredibly disappointing, incredibly hurtful, because a lot of this is happening from the same men that we love and we protect and we support and we encourage. Is there anything we can do about it? I think we're starting to see a shift now. I believe we're starting to see a shift just with people like Janelle Monáe. If you listen to people like Rhapsody, like you will have now female rappers coming out saying, that's not cool, I don't want you referring. Queen Latifah said it, like, she doesn't want anybody referring to her as a BITC, like bleep. Like, she does not want it, yeah. And so I think we're starting to see a change happen. Whether it is something that is going to happen overnight, I don't think. But I think the waters it's starting to come out. But in all things, whenever you're fighting a battle, there has to be allyship. And I think the men need to start checking each other and saying, yeah, that's not cool for us to do this to our black women, but we're always going to have clowns like 50. So...
Percent is beyond a clown. Lil Wayne is a clown for laughing. Lil Wayne has a fully black daughter that he didn't even consider when he sat there with his straggly hair and his disgusting teeth.
You ain't gonna say that.
Absolutely disgusting. Do you know what it is, right? 50 Cent, you know, I'm not going to talk about his musical credibility and his musical ability, but for him to sit there with his big-headed self and to think it's funny, but hold on, when did black women stop being exotic? Because I'm sorry, our nations are exotic in their meaning. Are you kidding me? Like, when I hear things like this, I just think it's someone who is so traumatized that they cannot see the beauty in their own people. So you're right, Anissa. We do need allyship. We do need other men to step forth and tell other men like 50 Cent and Lil Wayne when they are being clowns. We can't just be like, oh, well, we'll talk to our women privately about it. No, they have to come out in public and defend us. These are the same men that black women are forever defending. So we need black men to step up and be like, no, that's a clown move. No, I don't agree with that. Did you not see that stupid, was there a footballer, an athlete who went on Twitter to ask, oh, who finds Jill Scott attractive? Like, what? I don't understand these men. Like, are these not your mothers and sisters and your nieces? Like, are you mentally okay? So no, we need men to step out and be like, no, those statements are not okay. Our black women are beautiful. They're peng. They're sexy. They're gorgeous. Like, until we get that, us women alone having these conversations are not going to change anything.
I agree. And I think I agree with you so much because I don't think that we can separate out the fact, and I don't want to just talk about rap music. We're talking about rap, but you're going to find misogyny and misogynoir in like rock music. They say even in country music, there's misogyny, in heavy metal. It's everywhere because you cannot separate the misogyny from the society. The whole point is we have lived for hundreds of years in a patriarchal society where women have been seen as less than. Therefore, it has gone over into the music because that's just the way that it is. And I think with rap music, this whole colorism element, like, and Anissa's like, where does it come from? It comes from slavery. It comes from a place where the lighter your skin was, the more you were uplifted, and the more, and in general in society, like I was reading this book called Women Don't Owe You Pretty by Florence Given, and she's a feminist, and the whole idea, she doesn't begin this argument, a lot of other black feminists have talked about it as well, but whiteness is seen as the beauty standard. So the closer you are to a cisgender, straight, heterosexual, feminine, thin whiteness, that's the most beautiful that you are. And now what we're seeing is that if that's the beauty standard, our men are also saying, well, if that's beautiful, and this has been indoctrinated to us. Like, this is what the standard of good looking is. This is what the standard of feminine is, of successful is. And now we're seeing many of our black men, when they start to get success or be on certain platforms, they start to gravitate to what they have always been told consciously and subconsciously. This is the element of success. This is the most beautiful thing. And unless they start to kind of break down, why do I feel like if I'm successful, I should go for someone who's light skinned? Then we're never going to begin to break this down. Because as Linda said, if your mum and your sister and every woman that you've grown up with is a black woman, like 50 Cent, like Lil Wayne, I'm talking about, like these people, the fact that you're trying to discard them and say something else is more attractive, there's something going on there, because we are one of the only races that feels this in such a heavy percentage. And that is a fact. That is a fact that our black men we're most likely to date, our black men are most likely to date outside of the race, because we've always been told if white is the beauty standard, then there has to be something that's opposite. So if the closer to whiteness, thinness, thin features is the most beautiful, the opposite has to be the darker you are, the bigger you are, the wider your features is the most ugly. And we're just seeing them gravitate to what they've always been told is the best.
Amen. Get this girl a megaphone. Say it for the people in the back. I feel that 100%. I think I just wanted to really quickly give a definition to misogynoir, just in case anyone doesn't know, because misogynoir is a specific type of misogyny that is only affecting black women, which is why you can have fake feminism that excludes black women. You can have fake black power that excludes black women as well. And these things, I always say this is frustrating to me. Everything's frustrating to me, but it is because black women and black queer people contribute so much to the culture and contribute so much to popular culture, and yet are still largely excluded from it. Yeah. And I think everyone wants to scream black power, but no one wants to have the conversations about the power structures that already exist within the black community. And do you want to dismantle them, or do you just want to be on top of it, you know? I think that colorism, like, obviously it affects the whole community, but it just affects men and women just a little bit differently. And what by that I mean, darker skin is seen as masculine and aggressive. And so when you have a dark-skinned male rapper, it works for them. It works for their brand. It adds to their edge. It's something that they're allowed to have. But when you have light skin, because light skin is seen as feminine and weak, that's why the lighter skinned rappers, like someone like Drake, has a hard time convincing people that he's hard, because everyone's like, you're soft, bro, because your skin is light and you have a...
really weak. I'd probably say more delicate and more soft rather than weak.
Okay, but I feel like, yeah, synonyms, but I
potato, potato.
Yeah, literally. But when you have lighter skinned women, like what you were saying earlier, it is connected to elitism, because yes, it did stem from slavery, but it still continues to this day, because even after slavery, you'd have certain clubs that you wouldn't be able to get into unless you were, you know, the brown paper bag test. If you were lighter than a brown paper bag, you could maybe date white people. You could work here. You could go into these certain clubs. So it's always been connected to elitism. And when people upgrade, quote unquote, they always have, if you look at people's like track record, they always have like a dark-skinned baby mum to start with, or their first girlfriend was a dark-skinned woman, and then when they have money, when they have power, they're then white, or they're then very light-skinned, racially ambiguous black people, which is just a trend with absolutely everybody, not everybody, but the majority of black men in power, or the majority of black men with money. So that's like
it's
really
Russell
interesting.
Wilson who went the other way around.
I want to be careful when we're saying the majority of black men,
because I know that there is like a high proportion, but I just like to be careful with the word majority, because I just don't want to generalize my black men. And the only reason why I say that is because I've had these conversations with all of my homeboys all the time, and they always say to me, no, it's only a handful of celebrities that you see, blah blah blah, there's so many black people in the world, you can't say that. And so I've had to almost like redact my speech and be careful and say, you know what, let me stop saying it's the majority of you black men. I'm gonna say it's the ones that the spotlight is focused on the most, I see a majority in that arena, but I don't want to say majority because I just want to be careful about not generalizing.
No, I think it's so important.
Important to bring that in, Anissa, because I've dated mixed race guys. I've dated guys that are half black, half Indian, guys who are fully black, guys who are light skinned. And yeah, there are black men who adore black women, like of all races. And I think it's like you're saying, when we're seeing people in the spotlight, we're seeing something I feel like we see something different a lot of the time, but I don't want to give that narrative to black men because I've had a lot of amazing black men in my life who have loved black women, all different shades of black women. So yeah, I think in the rap music, I think
it is a problem, but I don't know if are you guys saying that we should stop listening to rap music then? Because I'm sure that's not what we're saying.
Yeah, I would say no, but I don't know if for me, I don't know if things come in waves. And the reason why I say that, because when I was growing up, like my favorite female rappers were black girls. I mean, it was Foxy Brown, it was Missy Elliott, it was Eve, it was Lil' Kim, and they were girls that looked like me. But then when I moved up into my teenager years, obviously things got a little bit different, things got a little bit lighter, you know, we moved more into a Nicki Minaj and like a Cardi B, like things are just a little bit lighter, Iggy Azalea, a little bit whiter. But now I feel like we're almost circling back, and now my favorite rappers are like Megan Thee Stallion and City Girls and Rhapsody and Miss Banks. And so I feel like we almost like go in waves. I don't know how to explain that. I think sometimes it's like what's trendy and what's hot. So at the moment, I think it's cool to be the black girl or the darker skinned girl. So that's what we're seeing at the moment.
So what do you think then about people like Foxy and Lil' Kim? Because those are people that I really listened to when I was growing up, when they were having stuff that was kind of misogynistic and kind of over sexual and things like that, because that was a lot of the way that those ladies were marketed into, heavily sexual, heavily talking about sex and themselves as just sexual creatures. So what?
Because ladies, we need to remember, it's a man's world. It's a man's world. And as much as there is a shift, and yes, I do agree with Anissa, things have been going in waves, and I think, you know, as all these movements progress, it's becoming more and more acceptable and celebrated to be black and blackety black, but we are still living within a man's world. You know, men want to see sex, men want to, you know, look at women and feel a particular way. Hence, if you think of all the female rappers that you know, they're all twerking in thongs. Yeah, I mean, there's a small few of them that aren't, but they aren't given the mainstream success as the other counterparts because men are in charge. Point blank, period.
I think that's why I think one of the ways to solve this is going to have to be the way that we look at women in society in general. Because this whole idea of like women, again, we're seen as a thing of desire. Do you know what I mean? That's how we're seen. We're very sexualized as to, first of all, our body parts and the way that we look and our hair and our makeup. And when we're seen as an object of desire, you then strip away, as we were talking about earlier, our characters, our interests, the things that we like to do, what our skills are, what our talents are. And until we start to see in society, which I think we're seeing now, women as a whole being, we're obviously going to still start to see this very sexualized trope in all different types of music, and the only thing that we're good for is sex, because in society we're only telling people that it's about our desirability. Like when you get older and you're not as attractive, you don't get film roles, or your music career dies out, or all these things because you're no longer in your 20s when you're supposed to be, in terms of society, in the height of your attractiveness. Past that, Sean Connery was playing James Bond at 79. No, he wasn't, but you get my point. Men can be attractive as they get older. Women, you're not getting those sexy roles past the age of like 40, 50. They have to start making them for themselves. So we have to change society in order for us to see a shift in the music.
Going back to rappers though, for me personally, because I love rap music, it's literally one of my favourite genres, but
really,
when it comes, yeah, for real.
I thought you were going to come out hard like, break down the patriarchy.
But it's a struggle though, because I do love rap music so much and I do listen to a lot of rap music that I really have to pick and choose. I really have to kind of like weigh it up a little bit. So I think for certain people, I think making mistakes is inevitable. It's going to happen with everyone, especially if you're in the spotlight and everything that you're doing is going to be dissected by an audience. Mistakes are inevitable, but growth is optional.
Yeah.
So if you actually want to opt in to grow, then I will opt in to support you. If you choose to ignore that and to be like, nah, whatever, blah, 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 then I'm just going to choose not to stream your music. And I think that's everyone, like every person is problematic, and like including us, like everyone has something that we still need to unlearn. So I think we can extend patience to people, but only if they actually want to be on this journey. So there are some rappers that I listen to that say misogynistic lyrics, and I'm like, oh, dude, come on. But then at the same time, I'm like, okay, maybe am I forgetting my privilege in the way that I've been brought up to see this way? And I don't want to have like my kind of nose in the air to be like, well, you should view it like this, which I do think you should, because I do believe like in equity and equality. But at the same time, everyone's journey to get there is going to be different in terms of our surroundings. Like sometimes people are products of their environment, and it takes a lot longer to detach yourself from that and actually see the world through your own lens rather than seeing it through your childhood traumas. So I actually want to give people more patience in terms of that. However, there are men that do not give an F and are like, that are not only like misogynistic, but like unapologetically anti-black when it comes to black women. And then I'm like, I don't even want to hear your voice through my headphones. I don't need it. I don't need it.
I think this is the thing in terms of like the learning being optional. No rapper, no one in the music industry, no one in any industry cannot say they don't have access to the knowledge to start to break down these things. And when you see people, specifically, let's say 50 Cent and Lil Wayne, having these discussions, you're like, dude, there's too much. There's too much information out here for you to be saying this foolishness. There's too much information out here for Lil Wayne to be rapping about how he likes a long-haired, red-boned girl. I'm just like, dude, like, there is enough information for you to start thinking, why is that my preference? Like, let me think about that. Let me break that down.
Yeah. Also, for me, you're not going to convince me that as a dark-skinned black man, you weren't there in school looking at your light-skinned boys' wavy hair and their caramel skin and wishing that you look like that. So you know how painful the colorism is, and yet you want to implement it on your women just because you feel like your money has helped you surpass it.
Luanda, say it again, because I said to one of my friends not too long ago, dark-skinned men being, winning right now only happened recently.
Yes, girl, recent. It's true.
Listen, only recently dark-skinned men started winning. Back in the day, it was all about light-skinned guys. And dark-skinned men did not like it when us black women were like, no, we want to light you. But for them,
eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's exactly. But I do think it's just a tough one. And I think that we as people or a community, and maybe more those who are fans of hip hop and rap, we have to do our part. The rappers have to do their part. Our men have to start being our allies. And then that's where we can really start breaking down this misogynoir, if you will. So if you like what you've been hearing so far, don't forget to like for us. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also comment down below. Let us know what you are thinking so far. Okay, so switching gears just a little bit. I've got a bit of a question for you guys, ladies, and I'm not sure what you guys are going to say, but I'm giving you full-on options to think about. Okay, so if you discovered, right, that your best friend was cheating on their partner, right, and you know the partner, would you A, confront your best friend, B, tell their partner, or 3, stay out of it? Where do your loyalties lie? I'm interested.
It's at least a conversation. At least. I think
conversation with
the person. It depends on the context for me, because I think that, sometimes you get to know your friends' partners through them being their partner, and then they're brought into your life that way. However, if it was like 2 of my friends that started dating, it would be completely different. But exploring the idea that it's going to be my partner and that I only know their partner, and my friend and their partner, right, who I only know through knowing them as their boyfriend or their girlfriend, or their significant other, like that, I'd stay out of it. I
you
would.
Complete 180.
Yeah, you did.
I would. No, I'd stay out of it. If I only know your partner through you, then I'm going to give you the space that you need to tell your truth. I'm not going to come with the moral police, and I'm not going to turn on my sirens and do all of that, because Lord knows we're all trash. But I think, yeah, I don't think I'd be, I don't think I'd be like, oh, hey, you need to do this. You need to, I give them the support they need, because at the end of the day, like, I don't think it's a healthy decision to be cheating on someone that you love. So really, sometimes these things for me seem like a cry for help. So I'd probably think about what it is that you need right now.
That's very magnanimous of you, girl. There's a lot of grace there, a lot of grace. I'm gonna talk to my friends, like my friend, my best friend. I'm gonna talk to them.
And I agree, it's so important not to come from the moral perspective, Luanda, 100%. Because I just be like, everyone's gonna get hurt in this. Like, no one is gonna come out of this unhurt. Not you, not them, not the person you're cheating with, whether they find out or not. Like, and I'd be like, do you want to be with them or do you not? Because if you're cheating, you're either saying that there's a glaring issue that you need to work on, or you don't want to be with them, and you need to sit down with yourself and have that conversation, because what you're doing right now, it's not good. And I'm like, and it's not fair, because I know them. Like, so that's not fair on me either. So that's what I would say to them.
I'm with both of you guys. Like, I would say something to my best. If that's my best friend, I would expect, if I was doing something like that she would come and speak to me. So I would literally speak to her. Obviously not take a moral high ground. It's not like, oh, you fucked up. But I'd want to understand, like, what is happening? Like, what has caused this? How are you feeling? And most importantly, if I found out, someone else can find out too. So I would, I would think the best thing for them to do would be to come clean, just to even if it's just to save face, because the last thing you'd want is for that to kind of blow up and have someone else find out now and then go and tell their partner. And also, if it's my best friend, all my close female friends, I know their partners, like my guy knows their partner, even though it's not like, we know them through them, but you form this kind of like group kind of,
a friendship,
like a little a couples community. So I would feel so bad, but I would speak to my friend. Like, there's no way I wouldn't stay out of it. That's not my character. And but it's true. And vice versa. If I found out that my friend's guy was cheating on her, I'm telling too. So I would have to go speak to my friend.
I'm like on the fence about it, because I used to be I would, come and speak to you and whatever. But I have learned the hard way to stay out of people's business. So now I just stay out of it. Because there have been times, and I won't call them my friends now, I'll just say associates, and we have been out. You have your man that you love dearly, and you've introduced me to him, and now we've become friends. And now I see you just behaving like you shouldn't behave. And so I used to have a one and done rule. So the one and done rule was, I used to say it to you one time, relax, you have a man. And if you, after me saying, relax, you have a man, you didn't want to take that advice, then I'd let you run free and do as you be. But if you understood when I said it in that moment, you're like, yeah, I need to check myself. I'm taking myself from the situation. That was fine. But then the people that I used to say to used to get annoyed. And I thought to myself, how comes every time I have to tell you that you have a man? If you can't remember, why should I keep remembering? So then it kind of put a wedge between us. And I thought, I've got to stay out of these people's business. And when I was younger as well, I was friends with a couple. And this person, he kept cheating on her. It was again and again and again. And so every time, because I would never be there when the cheating was happening, but I'm having people like, I'm talking, I went out to lunch and my friend brought a random girl, and the random girl said, oh my gosh, I got this man and he's so great and he does X, Y, Z for me and blah, blah, blah. You know what girls are like when they want to talk about their man, showing off pictures, and I'm in the picture thinking,
that's not your man,
I
girl.
know that fool. I know that fool.
It's crazy. And so then you go back to your friend and be like, he's cheating on you, but he's now mad at me because I've had to blow up his spot. She's taking him back, and now they're both mad at me because they think I'm in their business. But I'm thinking, well, I'm doing the right thing here, or whatever. Or you go to the guy and you say, listen, I'm giving you the opportunity. Please go and speak to her before I speak to her, because if I speak to her, it's just not going to end well. And I have just found it just never ends well when I get involved. So now I decided to stay out of people's business all the way.
Well, ladies, I've got a confession to make, right? So a few years back, I don't know if I would call this person a friend anymore. They're not quite an associate, but I don't know what I'd call them. We had gone on holiday, and she is married, and she cheated on her husband multiple times during this holiday.
Please.
And
do you know what it is? And it was quite a few years ago, so we're going back like 6-7 years, so it's still a slightly different Linda. And I was like, whoa. So as we got off the plane, like back in the UK and London, her husband called and she asked me to answer the phone, and I was like, hi, yeah, we had a good holiday. Because I was like, what if I slip up and say something accidentally? Like, you know, the guilt was killing me. Like, it wasn't my business, but it was killing me. But that Linda didn't say anything, you know, and every time I've seen her husband since, it's just like, when I see all this lovey-dovey post and this is my world, I'm thinking that wasn't your only world when we were in that country, but okay. You know,
I was going to say, it does make a big difference to me if they're just in a relationship versus if they're married. And also, I think that if I was having to be around this couple all the time, I just have to say to my friend, like, I'm not comfortable doing this, because then it feels like I'm lying as well. Yeah. So then it's like, I need to just remove myself from you and from the situation until you figure that out. But I don't know. I think it's difficult. It's difficult because you don't want to lose your friend, but you also want to let your friend know that, like, whilst this is happening, like, this can't be us, you know?
Yeah, you have to be willing to lose your friend over it. I know that sounds crazy, but if you want the truth to stand like that, or if you even have to tell your best friend, you know, what you're doing is a bit crazy, you have to be willing to know that they are going to be upset and they may not receive what you're saying, and this may create some distance. You have to, like, know that when you're about to speak to them.
Yeah, because for me, I think it's all about as I've gotten older, I want to be in friendships that are accountable, and, like, to be held to account is a very important value in my life now. And the same way, I want to have friends that I hold accountable. And I had a friendship, literally, it was earlier this year, I think, that just fell apart because they weren't ready for that. And you have to be willing to realize some people aren't ready for that level of friendship, for you to say, actually, I'm not happy with the way you did something, and I'm not really happy with the way you came at me about something, and can we work on that? Some people aren't ready to own their stuff because no one's honest with themselves. Let's be honest. Like, it's very difficult to be 100% completely honest with yourself, because it's a very painful thing. And in terms of, like, someone cheating, like, I was just thinking about in terms of times it was like a one-time thing. And because then I'd have to be like, look, I'd be like, babe, what's going on? Like, what is going on? Like, I care about you. If it's happening over and over, then the conversation changed. I'm like, don't put me in that position. Don't have me around when you're doing your madness, because I have to sit across from your partner
and smile in their face.
Yeah, we're not doing game night, sis.
Exactly. I'm like, it's not fair on me. You need to sort your stuff out, or I need to, like, extricate myself
from the situation, because I don't know how long I'm going to be able to play dumb for. And then what about if that partner then comes to you and was just, like, heartbroken, like, Sophie, did you know? Like, we've been friends, did you know? And I'd be like, what?
I don't even know what I'd say.
No, but it's true. You're right, though. What you said, Sophie, about being accountable, because what I found
with that particular friend, so obviously we went on that holidays, just us two, and, you know, she did what she did, and then 4 of us went on to a separate holiday, and she intentionally wanted to share a room with me so that she could, you know, do it. I swear to you, do it again, because I think she couldn't run that with the other 2. And I think for me, it made me feel like kind of shit. Like, oh, you know, I'm the kind of person where she thinks it's okay to do this stuff around. Like that, those are my morals. Do you know what I mean? So I had to just eventually just, you know, give that friendship a kind of wide berth. Because it makes you look away. No, but it's true. Because
I'm a wide berth. What?
We have to do a wide berth, innit? Because I feel like, I'm the idiot that will tolerate it, but these 2 won't. But that's why she wants to be in the same room as me. Like,
yeah.
You know,
it really makes you check yourself, to be honest. I do feel that way.
Is there ever an instance in which you would tell the partner? Like, is there ever a scenario where you're like, okay, I have to go against my best friend and I've got to go tell her partner?
It would be if I already had a friendship with that person before they entered into relationship. Like, that person is not just my best friend's partner. There's someone that I already knew, I already loved, I already was loyal to on a friendship level, and then you came into a relationship, because then that's my friend as well. So then you're just putting me, I'd say to them, you, like, time span, because you're putting me in a really uncomfortable, like, position. But next time I see them face to face, because I'd never do it like on WhatsApp or anything like that, like, next time I see them face to face, that's what's going to happen, because I would want my friends to do that for me. And I would, to be honest, like Sophie, like what you said, if someone came to you and they were like, did you know? Everyone that knew is getting sliced. I don't know how, like, you know, when the whole Cardi B situation was happening with Offset and all the Migos, like, obviously your boys know what's going on. I don't see how Cardi B could be friends with those men and like see them as a friend for her, because for me, I would feel so disrespected that they all knew this was happening. They all knew how much it would hurt me, and they condoned it, or they swept it under the rug, or they just turned a blind eye. Like, I can't.
Yeah, but at the same time, Offset's the one who owed her the most loyalty, so he.
Yeah, true, but I wouldn't. But that's what I mean. But then you and all your little friends, goodbye, all of them. You and your egos.
I'm always gonna stay loyal to my best friend. Like, I'm
always gonna go and speak to them. I'm always gonna say, I always have to say something to them, even if the other person's my friend. Because I'm like, if I'm talking about you're my best friend, that means we've been riding together for years. And like, I've been in some entanglements.
Woo!
Hey, like, stop it, Jada.
I don't think anyone can say that they haven't hurt someone or been hurt by someone. If you can, you're a better person than me. I've done some things that.
Sophie, do share.
I'm not gonna share. Trust me. I've been in something.
I just thought of an entanglement that I was in.
But as thing is, I've done things that I've regretted in the past, and it's taken me a while to forgive myself of it and be like, I shouldn't have been in that situation, and I hurt people. And now going forward, that's why I have grace enough to speak to my friend. But like, if you're my bona fide, then you're not someone who's going to be cheating on your boyfriend time. Because you ain't got no integrity. I can't roll with integrity. I can't do it.
What is this?
What were you going to say about your situation?
So check this out. This is going back to like 16-year-old Linda, right? Yeah. So I'm going to try and say this in the most vague way ever, in case these people end up watching this. So I used to work at a call center, yeah, and there was this guy there, and he had a girlfriend. Fine, you know, I was friends with both of them. Cool. My friend who didn't work with us, I don't know how she knew him. She ends up telling me about this guy that she liked. She said she's really into him. I'm like, cool, what's his name? She says, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like that's the same name as this guy that works at my call center. Turns out it's the same guy. I'm like, Lord, babes, you know he actually has a girlfriend. Somehow now I end up in the midst of these guys' drama, because my friend obviously confronts him. He's now like, why am I telling his business? But these times we're not like close friends. I say hi and bye to him and his girl, but his girl ends up being one of my like friends in a mad way. What makes the story the worst? Yeah, can you imagine? I think 5 years later, everyone they're all over and whatnot. Me and the guy get involved.
Linda.
I mean,
please.
Are you still friends with the girl?
So here's the thing. So the two girls, one of them is my church friend, and one of them, let's call her my work friend. The work friend, her and I stayed cool, but I did notice that when she'd seen me out and about, she wasn't as friendly anymore. So I presumed it was to do with that. The church friend ends up telling me that the guy is still contacting her. I get mad at the guy. He's like, no, she's lying. Turns out she was lying. I was just like, you know what?
Does it turn out that she was lying, though? Does it turn out from, like, in terms of, like...
Look at him.
In terms of consistent character traits. In terms of consistent character traits, Linda, was she lying?
She was. No, she was. So she had said something happened in April, and it hadn't. It just hadn't happened.
So maybe it happened in May. I just don't feel like.
But in May I didn't know him.
So basically, she said something happened in a date, but I didn't know him yet. But she lied and said. So basically, she was lying. But either way, for me, it was like I already saw a mess there. I don't know how I got. You just sometimes you just want to have a bit of fun.
Sometimes people get in these messy. I've been in some messy situations, and when I get older, I'm like, let me just chalk that down to youth, because
I was gonna say, because you were 16, Linda. So I don't know how all of those hormones, all of that immaturity. We're not fully formed humans yet. You know what I mean. We've all been there.
when are you a fully formed human? When you shouldn't be getting into entanglements, because what is the cutoff age? Because
I don't think it's, for me, it's not a cutoff age, it is a cutoff like mental growth, because I think and I think that's always continuous, to be honest, because at 16 I thought I was done. I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew who I was, and then I get to 18 and I was like, oh rah, and I get to 21 and I'm like, Never mind. Everything previous is cancelled. Well, not cancelled because it all matters. It all, you know, it all marinates in the end. But I just think that when we look back on our previous selves, it's like snakes shedding skin. You wear the skin, it is who you are at the time, but then you become a new person because you're growing all the time from these situations. So I wouldn't say cut off age, because we know that we've met some 17-year-old mentally men who their physical age is 37. So it's not a cut off age. It is like it's more a spiritual thing for me.
And to be honest, I'm still growing. Even yesterday, I realized something about myself, boy.
Like what? What was it?
Ever evolving.
It's just the levels of patience that I may need to exude, and also how I relay with people when people tell me certain things, and my need to counter with a story to make people feel comfortable. But that isn't my role. I shouldn't have to, but I feel like it's me being nice. So basically, I just need to stop being nice.
I don't think that's what I was taking from that sentence, but that's not what I took from that.
I don't think it's about stopping being nice, but I think definitely about the growth thing. Because just imagine that you're going through these entanglement sagas. That's what I'm going to call it. Imagine you're going through these entanglement sagas and you're in lockdown. Like, literally, some people are happy because lockdown is lifted and they get to go to bars. We see you, Soho. Or because they're going to like hairdressers or restaurants. But some people are actually happy because they've been cooped up with their partner or their parents or their housemates for 24/7, like 24 hours a day. Like, the longer you live with someone, the more you're going to see some crazy, weird, interesting, unwelcome habits because you're literally cohabiting. So is that the same for you guys? Like, what would you say are some of your biggest pet peeves when it comes to sharing a living space with other people?
Oh, you know what, right? I know it's going to sound weird, but I don't think I have any big pet peeves. Like, the biggest for me was when I was in uni. So I lived with my then boyfriend and 3 other guys in uni. So I was the only girl.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But you know, it's me, innit? So I made sure I had my own bathroom. Yeah. Linda's bathroom was upstairs. You man share the one downstairs. But for me, their problem, it was cleanliness. Like one day, I went so mad at everyone. Like, because I would, clean every now and again and make sure everything was good. And I just saw that they weren't trying to help. So one day I got so mad, I switched out every man in that house. When I came back from uni, they had went to buy bleach and cleaning utensils. And start cleaning, but they're used to cleaning. So I think that's what I can think of for now. I'm gonna let y'all talk because you guys might remind me of things that are pet peeves.
I don't feel like for me now, I don't have any pet peeves because it's, it's just me and one other person, and we've cohabited our whole life, a whole womb. So we kind of understand where each other goes, and there's no pet peeves. But when I was back in my family home, oh, my gears used to be grinded, honey, because it was just like, it was small things. Like, I could be in my room laying down and I go, oh, I need to go to the toilet. And I would like get up. As soon as I opened my door, it was like my little brother had a 6th sense and he would come flashing past me to run to go into the bathroom. And he did it every single time I had to pee. And it wouldn't just be to me, he'd do it to my mum. And I'd have to be like, can you relax? What is it that you only need to go toilet when other people need to go toilet? Like, what is the actual problem there? It used to grind my gears. Or I'd, for example, buy an ice pole or something that I like and I'd keep it in the freezer. Next day I go in to go find it,
it's not there, and I'm just going, guys, I bought one single. Who could possibly think that it's for them if they did not buy it? And I confront everyone in the house. No one knows what I'm talking about. I said, okay, it's fine. Nobody knows. It's okay. I'll buy another one. Happened to be 2 days in a row. At this point, I wanted to flip the whole lid. I was like, someone in this house is eating my ice poles, and they know at this point it's intentional. I was losing it. So the next day I went and bought 2 ice poles. I put both of them in the freezer. So who was stealing my ice poles could have one for themselves and I could have one. And it was just annoying things like that where I have to keep buying more and more food when it's just mine. So that's what I hated about living at home. I hate it.
I hear that one about the food, because for me, I'm like, I eat vegan, and so there's meat eaters as well. But why don't you just eat all of the meat things first and then only start on the vegan things when your meat things has run out? Because if my vegan things run out, I can't eat chicken. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? Also, the toilet thing, I feel like that must happen in every household because that's so frustrating. I feel like as soon as I move, someone's like, so frustrating.
I think the pet peeves depend on the relationship of the person who you live with, because I feel like if you're living at home in your parental home or with siblings, like that's the point, you know their craziness, and I feel like you have a little bit more patience with it because you've been with them the whole time. I think so. Like I think when you're living with like a housemate or whatever, that's when you really start to see some manners. Because I lived with my previous best friend and it just destroyed our friendship completely. Completely destroyed it. We were best friends when we moved in, and come stay with me, come live with me, two different things. And we just realized that we had very, very different upbringings. I can only say so much because, boy, like,
oh my gosh, isn't that
like,
speak on it, Sophie? We want to know.
It was just like,
I had grown up in a house, even though my parents got divorced. Like we had always like had meals together, sat down together, and me and my sister are extremely close, 2 years apart. So we did like everything together, and our parents really pushed us to be, that's the only person you have. If we're not here, the only person you have is your sister. That was a kind of mentality. But my friend, she was an only child, and her family didn't necessarily sit down together and do things. It might have been people in separate rooms, kind of coming into the house, you go in your room, mum's in one room, dad's in one room, whatever. So I thought that when we lived together, we were going to kind of like have a family together. We're going to be friends. We're going to watch TV together and eat together and things like that. And that just wasn't her upbringing. That just wasn't the thing. And it really kind of pushed us so far apart that literally it broke down. She asked me to move out because it was her place. Like I literally had to go and sleep on my sister's couch. It was it was rough.
Something similar happened to one of my close friends actually when I was spending a lot of time with her. So I was around her flat all the time and she was living with her friend, and they had kept falling out. Like I was cool with the flatmate. Obviously I'm not going to get involved or anything, but they kept falling out loads and loads of times. And then I asked her if there'd been an update on the situation, like, are you guys okay now? And she said, yeah, she's spending time with me again. And I'm like, oh, that was the issue. It was neglect. She felt like you weren't being paid attention to. She wasn't telling you about her day. She wasn't asking you how you are. You guys weren't eating meals together. You weren't cooking together. You weren't, you know what I mean? And the only conversations were just in passing. And that actually, it's interesting that you and your friend realized it, Sophie, because a lot of the time, people don't realize or don't want to realize that it's an attention thing because it makes them feel like, oh, I'm not a needy baby. But it's not that at all. Like if you have different love languages, then it is just going to clash if it's not the same.
Yeah. And for me, but to be honest, I wouldn't even say it was love language because my love language isn't even like spending time. It's not even that. But for me, it was just like in my household, things were different when I was growing up. Like it was literally a home upbringing stuff, because it's the same when I go to my sister's house now. We're all together all the time. There's no one in separate rooms. It's kind of like, this is family. But people's concept of family is very different. And we only realize that because when we were friends, like when we go out, we'd obviously do things together, but that was like cornered off time where we had both agreed we're going out to the cinema or to eat or to that. But the way that she spent her personal time at home was very different to how I spent mine. I thought it was going to be a continuation. So in terms of like pet peeve, for me, that's not a pet peeve, but what in terms of like cohabiting, you have to be really careful about understanding what is someone's living style. Because some people, they'll be out and you're at a dinner, you're like, blah, 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 chatty, 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 chatty. But at home, you're just like, this is just my quiet time. And I just like to reminisce and just think about things. So yeah, I don't know. But let me tell you a funny story because that was kind of depressing. I was speaking to the guy from EE the other day because I had to get some new equipment. I'm on the phone to the guy, very nice guy. He's making some chit chat. He's like, oh, how you finding lockdown? I'm like, I'm finding lockdown very good, thank you. I'm just like, I'm with my husband. Like, we like each other very much, so we're getting along. Like, we're literally living in the same space. And that's the thing, Anissa, I said it as a joke, right? He was just like, yeah, not my wife, to be honest. He was just like, she's on furlough, and he was just like, I'm so glad I'm at work. He was like, I can't spend that much time with her. I just can't do it. And he was just like, it's no offense, but he was like, it's a lot of time. And I think it made me realize that in lockdown, a lot of people have not spent this much time with their significant other ever before. There's like 8-9 hours that you were out of the house, and you're just like, I've realized that I just can't spend that much time with you. Like, how would you feel if your partner, well, if you discovered that your partner felt that way about you?
I think, you know, on a sly, I could see my partner feeling that way about me.
No, do you know what? Obviously, it would hurt to a degree because you would want to feel as though, you know, this person could be around you 24/7 and not get tired of you. But I think we have to remember that we are all human beings. We are all, like, sometimes I don't even like being around myself, you know? I'm like, Linda, just nap so you can get away from Linda, you know? Like, so I think it's a maturity, and it's a real conversation that has to be had. Like, even when I go stay with my partner, sometimes, for example, he works as an assistant producer for the Premier League. So when he's not working football, he's watching football. And what I've started doing is bringing my laptop. So then, you know, I have little things that I can do instead of sitting there trying to enjoy Bournemouth v Leicester when I don't know what's happening. Yeah, do you know what I mean? But it's just, it's a conversation thing. And he knows that when I walk out of the room, it's not because I'm in a huff. It's because, look, I'm going to let you have your time for yourself. I will go and, you know, like even the other day, I was supposed to have a nap, but I ended up watching something on Netflix. But just to let people have their time, I think we have to remember that we all deserve some alone time. And I know not everyone's living situation can allow that if you're, you know, in a 1-bedroom house or a 1-bedroom flat with a partner, but some kind of allowance needs to be made because we all deserve alone time. So you just have to try and not take it personally. And hopefully the relationship.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't be offended. I would just like prefer that you're upfront with me about it, kind of like, Anissa, chill, like I need some time, versus like you know, saying things under your breath or being snappy with me. Like, I don't want you to be passive aggressive about it. If you want some time by yourself, just let me know. But that's why it's always a weird one, because I've never lived with a partner, do you know what I mean? Like, I've gone and spent extended periods of time together, and even in those extended periods of time, I thought for myself, oh my god, like, I'm ready to go home, like I need a break. Do you know what I mean? And so for me, like, one of my biggest turn-offs about men is their cleanliness. So every time I go to their house, I am looking at everything. I am looking at, you know, how many dishes are in the sink? Is the toilet bowl clean? Is their hair there? Is their hair there? Because it really, really turns me off about a man who can't keep his own house tidy. It's like my biggest turn-off.
I hate it.
Yeah,
I mean, I would like to think that I wouldn't be offended if someone said they wanted their time, and only because, like, I'm big on my space, and I really am a social butterfly, but I do like spending time with myself, and I do really, really value my alone time, and I like to be alone with my thoughts. I like to kind of just gather, even sometimes when I've spent like a couple of days with my friends back to back, and they're like, oh, you're going home, what are you going to do? And I'm thinking, be by myself. But how do you word that? Like, I need to be alone with my thoughts. I need to because I feel like when you're with people, when you're with a partner, or when you're with friends or whatever, you are being the version that they expect of you. Like, when you are just alone, you get to actually just unpack and just be with your thoughts, which I think is so, so important. And I don't think enough people do that. And I think people who need to be around someone 24/7 actually don't know who they are when they're not relating themselves to being this person's partner or being this person's friend or being this person's sister. So I think that people really need to, like, if you can't spend time with yourself, there is actually something very, very wrong.
Well, I think that's the thing with this kind of like pet peeves thing, is that probably lockdown has probably intensified you seeing things that you probably don't like about the people that you're living with, whoever that might be. Because I dated this guy once, I didn't live with him, but he just couldn't stop talking. Like, he would never let a break in the conversation. He would continually talk. So literally, unless we were like at a cinema or something, he'd be talking. And one time I said to him, you know, you don't need to talk all the time. Like, sometimes we can just let the space breathe. And he was just like, he got really self-conscious because he was like, he thought it meant something if someone wasn't filling the space. I'm like, dude, like, I can't take the constant bombardment of it. So let alone what it's like for some people in lockdown, like when you're...
Oh, it's a lot, man.
Must be at night.
Yeah. Comfortable silence is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, you know. But I'm surprised, Sophie, that he didn't talk during the movies. I hate it when people speak during the film. I'm just like... What did you say?
I'm a movie talker.
Me too.
I'm never going to the cinema with either of you.
I'm in the cinema. Are
you guys talking about like a new film that you haven't seen before? You're talking through this?
Yes, I might have a comment to make.
I'm a live commentator.
Me too.
I must say what I feel.
Yeah,
I love watching films with my sister because we know what we normally do is listen, because we will be more entertained than a film we're watching. Like, I love it.
Yeah, I would only do that with something that like I haven't seen before, because if it's with something that I have seen before, I don't mind people talking because like it's going to happen. That's why when I'm with friends and we're going to watch something, I always suggest something that I've already seen so that I don't get aggy, because otherwise I'm like, I just want to take in the scene. I want to take in that camera angle. I want to take in the composed music. I want to think about it. And also there's so many little Easter eggs when you're watching a movie that's like, oh, they said this in scene 1, episode 1. You didn't catch the title of that newspaper, and it all comes back full circle. So I'm a bit of like a nerd in terms of that. I can't deal with it. The only time that I did get hyped in the cinema vocally was when me and all my black ass friends went to a full black ass cinema to watch Get Out, and everyone was in uproar. Everyone was laughing. Everyone was throwing popcorn. Like, it was a great experience. But that's the only time.
Was that Peckham by any chance? Because I went to Peckham to watch it, and it was that same experience. And it was, I'm telling you, it made the film. The film was crap.
You will not catch me watching horror movies.
Oh, I love them. So my siblings, so my brother and sister, we have this thing where we watch horror movies, but I'll sit in the middle.
No.
They get really scared. So I love horror movies.
Not unless it's an all black cast, man. I've watched Get Out and I've watched Us, and that's as far as I'll go. Because just for the melanin, and that's it. Otherwise, the horror genre is not for me.
Same.
Can't do it.
Absolutely not. I've been banned by certain friends. They won't go to the cinema with me. They absolutely.
I'm one of those friends, Anissa. Sorry.
Hey, call me when you need me. I'll go by myself sometimes.
To the cinema by myself and shout.
That's what I just said. Anissa, listen, I think they open on the something of July. What are we gonna go watch?
I'm done. I'm just really sad that I missed Mulan, because Mulan's my whole childhood, and that live action version.
I know every Be a Man.
I literally just watched Mulan for the first time the other day. I know, and I just watched Aladdin for the first time yesterday.
I don't care about Aladdin.
Me neither.
I don't care about Aladdin. Like, I don't dislike it, but Mulan and the Cheetah Girls turned me into a feminist. So they have like really.
Wait, you say Cheetah Girls?
Yeah.
Girls.
You guys didn't watch the Cheetah Girls?
Yes, but I don't understand how you drew that conclusion.
You guys don't remember, the song Cinderella? And it was like, I don't want to be like Cinderella. There's a big feminist movement. How did you all miss that? What? Come on, Raven Simone. Come on, Adrian Bailon. You didn't watch the Cheetah Girls?
No, I prefer Cheetah Girls too.
That's a good one.
Yes.
That's a good film. That's a good film.
With you. Sophie, I am with you.
I think it's like, I missed it. I feel you guys got those years under me, so I feel like I missed that entire movement.
Wait, even Mulan or just the Cheetah Girls?
Oh, I liked Mulan, but Mulan hasn't come out yet. It's getting released on like August.
No, the original, the Disney cartoon.
Yeah, I like the original.
It's not enough. It's not enough. And on that note, everyone at home, go and watch Mulan, and also give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. If you'd like a summary of all the topics that we've discussed today, head over to unitedmelaningroup.com/ES005 and everything will be there for you, as well as a link in the description. As promised, I want to very quickly talk about the worst date that we received in the comments from last week. We had someone go to a science museum on a first date. The man told her an opinion that his mother had. She agreed with this opinion, and he said, "You cannot agree with my mother, you need to agree with me." All the time. As well as having zero attention span, at the end of the date, he told her that she was annoying like a little sister, and then proceeded to flick her underneath the chin and walk away. And if that wasn't enough, he bombarded her with text messages, asking for a second date, asking her to meet his friends. We just won't do it. It's a left swipe for me. But please share with us what your pet peeves are living in a cohabited space, whether you're with friends or family or a loved one, a partner. Just tell us what your pet peeves are in the comment, and we'll read the funniest one out next week. But we will see you same time and same place in 7 days. Stay safe and stay alert.